welcome to you all. I'm really pleased this evening that we have the wonderful Hilary with us. Hilary and I have known each other for, I don't know, it must be about 10 years, is it now, Hilary? Must be.
Yeah, it must be. It must be.
Which is incredible, and we'll get to that story. But, you know, I absolutely love Hilary. I love her entrepreneurial, creative spirit. And, you know, I'm really pleased there's so many people joining us today, because I think you'll be inspired by Hilary's personal backstory as much as she wants to share, and then also her professional journey, and then, you know, how she came up to, I don't know what you describe it as, maybe a brick wall, but we'll let Hilary describe that and come up with a metaphor and decide, actually, I want to get over that, and actually what I really want to do is build my own business. So Hilary, welcome to MOE Foundation Digital Academy. It's great to have you here.
Oh, it's great to be here, Darren. I'm thrilled to bits, and yes, I mean, I'm starting to realise how sharing our stories is really impactful and really helpful for others. I think I hid away from talking about my experiences for a long time, thinking, oh, no one will want to know, you know, don't do that thing. And then every time I said a little bit, people would say, oh, you know, can you tell me more? And so I just kind of got over the whole false modesty and thought, just tell a story, and hopefully it's helpful. So,
well, wonderful. So let's start with the end. So let's start there, and then I'm going to track back to the beginning. So why don't you tell us, you know, what you're conjuring at the moment and what you're building, your two different organisations that have now sort of gelled together.
Yeah. So I have a coaching business, and in my journey of developing that business over the last 6 years, I became a bit frustrated that a lot of my coaching clients were kind of in the space when I was with them, but then in the weeks between me seeing them, it would all go a bit dry. You know, they'd often come and see me the next time and go, oh yeah, I just haven't had time, or I've been too busy, and yeah, that behavioural stuff, I didn't quite feel like I could do it in that meeting. And so I kind of thought, blimey, you know, if you turned up at a gym, you know, and bought your new trainers, you would expect to come and pump some weights at some point. You know, it isn't just about buying the trainers. So I thought, how can I get these folk, and I have to say I coach in really male-dominated industries, so how can I get these folk to do their reps? You know, if I'm their personal trainer, how do I get them to do the reps between sessions? And I decided that I was going to create some audios for them to listen to of my voice and a couple of other people, so they can't escape me. And then, but because two senses are probably better than one, I wanted to combine the audio with a video of nature. This was before COVID. You know, we were all talking about nature now, but this was before then. And then I thought, oh, and I think these folk in engineering organisations would love to have a bit of kit. So although they can engage online with the audio and video of their choice on their phone or laptop, the really sexy bit in it is that they can also access it on a VR headset. So they get the full 360 immersive experience of sitting in the wood or being on a beach or in a field. And yeah, so that's what I've spent the last 2 years developing, and it went live finally in January this year. So it's been a long old slog, but I still get animated about it.
Absolutely. And what's so amazing is, like, you've got no history of VR or
no.
camera, have you? So you just went and got the VR camera and just started shooting, didn't you?
Yeah. So I you know, nowadays I'm going to show you.
Comes the tech.
Nowadays I just have one of these sort of just hanging around my office, you know, because I'm so down with the kids, you know, nearly 60 and I'm down with the kids. So it's kind of, oh, let me show you my IT tech. And actually I've discovered that I kind of know quite a lot about it now. I can really hold proper conversations with techie people and go, no, it's not like that, it's like this. And they go, oh yeah, sorry. So it's Yeah, so I didn't know anything about it at all, Darren, at all. So
which is incredible. And as well as sort of developing the end-to-end of the VR experience that you've created, and the meditation speeches, talks that you've built that as well, you've also got a university on board, haven't you, to start evidencing the benefits of this?
Yeah, we did. Oh my goodness, that was incredible. And again, a massive lesson to me, because I've often been really intimidated by academic organisations. So to find, it was Aston University in Birmingham that one of their, I get confused with these academic titles, but he's a dean of some kind. Anyway, he was interested in what I was doing and said, "Oh, I think we might be able to find some research resource for you, because this feels like it could be really interesting to research." And they introduced me to this incredible assistant professor who I totally had a meltdown about talking to. And then, 3 months later, we'd applied at Mind Trainer, which is what we call the online offering, to across 57 full-time employees over a 3-week period. And at the end of those 3 weeks, the data showed, and I can say this off by heart now, that there was an immediate impact on energy and well-being that would last for up to 2 hours. For up to 4 hours afterwards, there was a positive impact on task performance. And if you used a VR headset, and this is the bit I won't let go of, if you did the experience in a VR headset, for 4 to 6 hours after a 6-minute intervention, there was a positive impact on innovative and creative problem solving, which was absolutely massive for me. You know, just my little idea that people had told me to, like, yeah, right, Hill, shut up. You know, you're always rambling. To get that evidence, I can remember, it makes me quite emotional thinking about it, I remember getting the findings back, going downstairs, putting the kettle on and saying to my husband, "Do you know what? If I never make any money, that's amazing. You know, that's the best thing, you know, to have my idea ratified by academic evidence." So yeah, it's a real high.
Absolutely, and it's just phenomenal.
Thank you, Tracy.
Phenomenal. So yeah, round of applause, please. And also, I think it's really wonderful. You did pop out your age, you know, and so that's your choice. You know, we're not ageist in Mo. And I think what's really wonderful is that it demonstrates that your creative intelligence and your ability to innovate and to imagine is actually always there. So, yes. And I think that's probably the point where we'll pause on that part of the story, because I think what makes your story even more phenomenal is if we go right back to the very beginning, and if you start to share some of life experience, because I think that will start to help people to appreciate just the depth you've gone to in order to get yourself to this point in your life. So share as much or as little as you'd like to, Hilary. It's your evening. And then once we've gone, you know, this part of the story, and we'd open it up for some Q&A, and then we'll continue the story again. So hold those thoughts. But yeah, here, if you'd share some of your life story, I think that would really bring it home to people just how incredible this journey is.
Yeah, so I do talk about this nowadays, since meeting you, really, Darren. You gave me the courage to talk about it, because I feel my life, sadly, started when I was 6 and I was sexually abused. So that's kind of formed who I was, really. And interestingly, I gather it is interesting, that I was abused by someone I was just taken off the street. So it wasn't a family member. I never knew who it was, but they said they'd kill me if I told anyone. And I didn't tell anyone till I was 43. So he did a good job of scaring the wits out of me, but it made me a very dysfunctional child. And I already lived in quite a dysfunctional family. And I think when I look back, I found safety, and I found the safe me in nature. You know, I always had to be outside in rain, snow, sun. We did have a garden, luckily enough, and I'd be out there morning, noon, and night. I'd have to be sort of dragged in by my parents. So space has always been huge for me, and I think that's probably why I wanted to use nature in the offering I've just designed. So yeah, I was a bit of a quirky kid, and when I got to 11, I was sat down at school, and I had to listen to my teacher telling my mum that I was too thick to sit what was then the 11 plus, so they wouldn't even enter me for it, because there was no hope. So that kind of defined me once more. And yeah, I was scared of education. The abuse had happened right by the school, and I had to go there every day, right where it happened. And I think when I look back, it was completely crazy times. And I guess the only good thing about it was the only choice that they felt there was for me was to send me to a ballet school, because I was good at dancing. So I went to full-time ballet school from 10 to 16, and I won scholarships and danced my little socks off 3-4 hours a day. And then when I was 16, I was 2 inches too tall to dance professionally. So I was chucked out of there. And this was in the 70s, so there wasn't really any career opportunities for women, and because I had no education beyond dancing, I was told I could learn to type to music, copy typing, or be a hairdresser. That was it. That was all I was deemed any good at. So I opted for typing to music because I had a pretty good rhythm, having done 6 years of dancing. And I went off, and life wasn't so bad, really. I managed to earn money, and I left home early, left home at 16, earned money typing. But then, as victims of abuse often would concur, you end up in abusive relationships. So I was married by 26 and divorced with a child, single parent, by 30, and had suffered a violent marriage with an alcoholic husband. So pretty dark time. But my son was everything. As soon as I gave birth, I thought, this is why I'm on the planet. This is this is the job for me. I'm going to look after this little soul. And he's 6'2" now, and absolutely adorable. So that gave me a real purpose in life. And I think that's when I started to flex my muscles and think, okay, I'm gonna have to find a way to get off benefits and find a way to be the person I now really think I can be. Being a mother made me feel I've got way more than I've ever realised. So I've still avoided education like the plague, because I had a deep belief I was really and truly ignorant and thick. And but I did get a job where my boss had a lady as a boss in a personnel office, and she kind of picked me up and said, I think you should do some exams. Why aren't you doing some exams? So she changed my world, really. And thanks to kind of part-time work, part-time benefits, blah, 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 life goes on. I just literally crawled from taking in ironing and working in a pub and doing a typing job up to assistant director in the NHS. And I'm still avoiding education, absolutely. I used to go to board meetings, and I'd have to have the finance director next to me because I was petrified of doing anything to do with sums. I still call them sums because they blur in front of my eyes. So, and then I did meet a lovely man and got married and had another child who I just adore, and my stepchildren I adore. So my parenting is kind of mainstream, but in about 2008, when the last recession came, I spent a whole year making people redundant. And it was awful. I had the name the angel of death in the organisation I worked in, which didn't help my self-belief at all. I turned up at reception and I could hear the receptionist going, "It's the angel of death for the meeting." And after a year of that, I decided that I was really going to bite the bullet, change my career from HR into behavioural psychology. And I feel nervous thinking about it. I filled out the application for City University in London. This is where I get emotional, to do a master's. Just the thought of applying. Then I got an interview and I was shocked to pieces. Then I got a place, I was shocked to pieces. Then I was terrified all year, and then I passed. So I actually got a master's. Flipping heck, who would have thought it? I was older than the bloody lecturers there. But it's just so funny to think about it. And it was the best year of my life. It was amazing. And the kids came to the ceremony, and I was like, gutting, I've cracked it. And then I met Darren and did lots of lovely work in Network Rail around emotional intelligence. And he kind of gave me another, you've got this, but actually you can now do this. And he made me kind of realise that there was more in me. It was more than a qualification. I could actually be me and be successful. And so 6 years ago, I started my own business. It's grown every year. It's grown every year. I think the turnover, that will be it. And every year it gets bigger. And that's when I thought, and now I'm going to go in my gut, because my gut is this little gadget I've created. I just know it's right. I just know it's right. That's all I can say. Yesterday I had a client, finally, a client who had engaged with it for 4 weeks, 3 times a week. So that's only 18 minutes a week. And I'd been coaching him for a while. He'd been quite reticent, bit kind of suspicious. And he rang me yesterday and he said, "Oh my God, 4 weeks in, and now I'm scared of not having this product in my life. It has impacted on how I behave at home and at work in such a positive way." And I was just kind of like, "Give me that testimonial, give it to me now." And it's a joy, and it's an exciting joy that's terrifying some days. That's kind of how but that's life, isn't it? That's been my life, a terrifying joy. And anyone who says different's lying, I think. So that's me in a nutshell. Yeah.
Well, I mean, honestly, Hilary, thank you so much, because I'm sure that there's people within the MOE community that will resonate, and they may well choose to follow up with you afterwards. And
absolutely,
I know you'd welcome that, because I know all you want to do is support and serve and help other people
that
have experienced something like that, and actually to help them to realise. And I think that's what's so beautiful about who you are and the way you are, is that actually that gives people that sense of inner strength that you've talked about. And I love the fact that you trust your intuition now. It's so amazing for me to hear you fully trust your intuition and look at the results that are starting to come, and your creative intelligence and how you're manifesting it and bringing it to life through those acorns of ideas. I mean, it's just phenomenal. And it's it's so great to kind of hear that. Just because you've mentioned it, that let's talk about it, because we know it's a big shift to go from starting out at the coalface in a career sense. And I fully respect that. I don't understand what it was like in those periods when my mum would tell me that, and my aunties would tell me that women were told, "This is your opportunity." My experience as a guy is different to that, and that's phenomenal. That actually for me to conceive that that was even the way it was. So you progressed through there. You then, you know, was very successful in the NHS, then education, and then very successful when I was meeting you in the influence and the support that you were offering in Network Rail. Now you've kind of taken that next leap into that entrepreneurial roller coaster, you know, and terrifying joy, or whatever it is you want to describe it as. How are you finding the experience of being out there in the world as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a, you know, as a, you know, as a person bringing your creative gifts to the world?
I think that for me, the toughest thing is to be feeling passionate about something and then get it taken apart by people, or, you know, or criticised. You know, I can't watch Dragon's Den now. It's just, I feel so bad for people who feel it really is hard to keep balanced, keep your mind balanced, and take on constructive criticism and then push back on things that you don't think are going to help you anyway. They'll get in the way, actually. And I've found that I found it more emotional than just building up coaching clients. You know, I feel like I'm literally invested in it personally. Yeah, and that's, you know, they talk about empathy overload, don't they? And sometimes in coaching that you can take on the person's problems, and I feel it's a yeah, maybe it's the motherhood thing. You know, maybe it's like it's my baby, and I don't want to sort of give it up. But as an entrepreneur, it's a very different thing from but from starting my coaching business. It was much more personal.
Yeah, and I really agree. I personally, as you know, on the kind of masculine male side, you know, I'm very happy to be called a man, by the way, everyone. Very happy. It doesn't offend me. You can call me anything you wish. You know, I see it as a baby. You know, I do see it as a baby in that sense, and you know, something that you're developing and growing, and I do think that's really important. I just want to ask you a question about, at what point did you shift your identity to, I'm an entrepreneur now, I'm a business owner, I'm an entrepreneur? At what point did you fully start to go, actually, this is part of who I am? It's not who you are, it's part of the Hilary that I now know. So at what point in your journey did that start to really click in and you start to go, no, this is who I am?
Shall I share a photo with you? Because I think I can name the moment. So in these photos, I'll come back to that in a minute. See if I can. So this is where it happened, South Africa.
Yeah.
I went to South Africa on my own, which is the left-hand photo. So in 2018, so the New Year's Eve, 17/18, I committed to saying yes to more. And the first thing that came along was an invitation to go down to Cape Town. And I just did really out there things, like that's me climbing up Table Mountain. And I think at that point, I really felt I was powerful, you know, just felt this power coming to me. And I think on the right-hand side, that's in 2019. That's also in South Africa. And that's my husband with the huff. He's got the huff there because I was adamant I needed to do 360 films for the for the new business. He was deeply fed up. So there was something about being in South Africa at that time, in those places, that made me sorry, I'll stop that. That made me just think, I'm not giving up. I've got my teeth good and proper into this, and I'm not giving it up.
Wonderful. I just want to let everyone know there's 38 people on here at the moment. So just wanted to let you know that. You know, so that's yeah, no, incredible. So and you do now own that identity shift. You know, you see that as part of who you are and your identity.
Yes.
No, wonderful. And those other pictures, is there stories that you want to share with those pictures?
Yeah, I can just I will share that first one. I hope everyone can see that.
Yep.
So in the left-hand side, this was my first interaction with VR headsets. I was asked to come in as an associate and do some training with VR, where groups of staff were put in immersive experience of, in this case, it was driving buses. So they went into an environment where they felt they were driving a bus, and then the video would stop and they would answer questions on what they do next. And then you'd carry on with the video and they'd see what actually played out. And it was TFL. It was a tough gig. And these guys were blown away with the reality of it. So that was when I just kept talking to the IT guy the whole time, going, surely we can do more with this. Surely I can do so. So that's me in the middle doing my own stuff. And then on the right, that's one of my clients in full flow, because sometimes I put them into a headset before we have a coaching session, because it gets them into a really calm is capable space in terms of their approach to the session. Otherwise, in coaching, you can spend half an hour just getting them down off the previous meeting. So I find it a really great way to centre them. And these are just a couple more photos of places, before lockdown, where I begged, stole and borrowed tickets to get to places so I could take my 360 camera, and literally that and a rucksack, and a rock up and take pictures wherever I was allowed to. So this was in Antigua, where I hitched a ride on a yacht for a week. At South Africa again. And some of them are just getting up at 5 a.m. in Britain, and they're going out on my bike with my camera, finding fields that look great, setting up the camera, hiding somewhere. I have to hide behind hedges, and often some flipping dog walker will turn up, or some cyclist or a ruddy farmer, and I have to start all over again. So it can be quite a lengthy process. Or some great big bird comes and sits in front of the camera. So that, I find myself looking for environments to film all the time. So that was just a few examples there.
And that's so amazing when you think to when you went back to when you were a child, and that nature was a safe space for you. It was a privileged, private, safe space. How did you join those dots? Steve Jobs always said, you only join the dots going backwards. So how have you joined those dots, that you've brought what you love and makes you feel wonderful to this product?
Well, I did 2 solo trips to South Africa, and on one of them, I stayed on a compassionate conservation game reserve. So you went there as a volunteer and you stayed in a campsite. Literally, you could hear the lions on the other side of the hills, and I had to sleep in that tent, and there were bloody great big spiders, and I was absolutely petrified. I can honestly say there were some moments I was as petrified as I'd been with the guy back when I was 6 years old. But there was something about being in that space, and all the time I was in that tent and going out on the drives, and the elephants sometimes came right through the campsites, and it's scary being right next to an elephant when it's on musk. So it challenged me a lot. And do you know what, Darren? In those few days I was there, I couldn't wish myself home more. I couldn't. I was thinking all the time, I want to get out. I can't wait for this to end. This is too much for my whole threat system. And yet the day they drove me to the exit so I could get the car for the plane, my whole body wanted to be back in the tent. My whole being wanted to be back in the tent. And I just thought, I realised then that sometimes when I'm most petrified, that's where I need to stay. And that the space was terrifying. The bloody predators were terrifying, but there was also something I can't get enough of either. So nature, pushing my boundaries, sticking with it, all kind of came together in this product. And that's why the audio means so much, because the research around determination and grit and ambiguity, all those audios in our own little virtual world now, we're still dealing with the same emotions that I've dealt with in that tent. So it's a funny old maelstrom of stuff, isn't it? But
yeah, no, absolutely. So I'm going to say, if you start getting ready for your questions, I've got two more. I've got one point I want to make, and then two more stories that I want to capture, and then we'll start opening it up. So first thing I want to share is that, talking of sort of pioneering spirit, so Hilary and Mo are actually going to be launching a VR podcast later on this autumn, and we think we're first in the world to do it. So, Hilary's partnering with us to do that. So I just wanted to let you know secretly. Let's not let it out yet, but that's what, when we launch our podcast, we're going to be also offering a VR podcast side of it. So, we're really excited about that, and bringing that to life. So I just wanted to let you know that, and I'm really excited to kind of see what that looks like. And as always with us, we'll experiment, and we won't get it right first time, and we'll just keep improving it. Second thing I wanted you to bring to life, and we'll share this paper afterwards, because when I was interviewing you and your daughter-in-law, your stepdaughter, Ashley, Dr. Ashley, you shared about this paper about. Yes. So why don't you share that, because I was blown away by this stat and these stats.
Yeah, well, in fact, I've got it pinned up on my board here, this paper. And I've got it printed out. So I keep it by me all the time to remind me. So the paper's called, and I'll share this because I've got some info to share with you guys after this. It's called Just Think: The Challenges of the Disengaged Mind. And in the paper, they took a number of people, I don't know the exact number now, but they took them and they sat them individually in a room with nothing but a table, a chair, and an instrument to give themselves an electric shock. And they asked these individuals to sit with their own thoughts for 15 minutes. And the majority of them, especially males who seek sensory influence more than women, but the majority all chose to give themselves electric shocks rather than sit with their own thoughts. So, that when we talk about mindfulness, and this is a huge piece to register, there can be quite a lot of anxiety provoked by being plunged into a mindful state or being expected to adopt mindful audios. It can actually, if you have any past trauma, it can actually put you in a negative space because it makes you feel anxious. And because of this particular article, we have created what we call the kind of couch to 5K of audios, so that people can go in at quite a business-like, listen to quite a business-like voice in a quite training way. And then they can do a bit of train the mind, and then they can do a bit of calm the mind, but nothing is as immediately plunge pool like in terms of those audios, because actually we find it very difficult to accept that naturally. So we're trying to just help people gradually change rather than dive into some practice which will feel very, well, it enhances our vulnerability. That's the worst thing about it. So I'm not saying mindful products aren't useful, but there's an awful lot about them you need to understand before introducing them.
Yeah, and so I just want to share a bit of my own personal sort of insight when I heard about the paper and looked at it. And I think it's somewhere in the region of 75% of the men and 25 to 30% of the women actually gave themselves an electric shock. And there was one man that gave himself an electric shock over 300 times. So he was an outlier, but so it's just quite incredible. But and just to share from my perspective, what was so fascinating is I've always struggled with mindfulness. I've always struggled with that being and sitting and being with mindfulness. And it was really interesting because I've traveled around the world to go to spiritual centers and all sorts of things. And I went to Osho's spiritual center in Pune, which is just south of Mumbai in India. And what I really loved when I was out there was that they did dynamic meditation, which was called dancing, which is really interesting. They actually use dance to and I love that. I fell in love with that form of meditation because I was actually being active, me just sitting there and being in that sort of, this position. I did enjoy the evenings. Any of you that have been to there, you'll know that the evenings are quite special because you're in this pyramid and there's about 200 or 300 people laying down all in whites listening to Osho, and it's a deep meditation. So I did enjoy that form of meditation. But when I saw that paper, for me, Hilary, it really started to join some dots around why I like the walking and listening to meditation and running, more walking these days, as we know. But I just thought that was fascinating. So it's a really interesting social psychology piece of work. And, I was really pleased and glad that you kind of surfaced it, and we'll definitely share it around because I think it's fascinating. And I think also with, as you shared at the very beginning, the fact that you work with quite a lot of people in heavy industry, men, actually it really starts to help them because they feel like they're actually engaging with something. And it's tech as well. And, and I'm, again, not to get into gender stereotypes, but it is, from what you're seeing, is they really love engaging with it, don't they? Men and women, but they're engaging with it, aren't they?
Yeah. They're blown away by it as well. They think they know what it's going to be like, and then they experience it, and it's like, oh my God, that is, and
then the other thing that I wanted to share, because you mentioned this phrase earlier, so let's talk about how you are now down with the kids and actually starting to influence, some other VR partners. So you've started to expand out and you're starting to get attraction and interest from other VR partners, aren't you? And as you said, you're holding your own in that space. So share how those partnerships are starting to form.
Yeah, well, we only have to think about New Year resolutions, don't we, to know that we often know what a solution is, but maybe don't get around to doing it or whatever. And, I was conscious of this with our product, that it's the sensible thing to do, but will people, blah, blah, blah. So I went on a webinar, a LinkedIn webinar about a multiplayer VR organisation. And they've created some interactions with, they're not really games, they're challenges that teams, no matter where you are in the world, can come together in their avatar, and you can have a go at these challenges. And the purpose of them is to kind of up the ante. They put you under pressure, you watch each other as teams, you have to make quick decisions. And anyway, I got chatting to these people, as you do, and they kind of said, well, I'll have a go with our game, so our team had a go. And then I kind of said, what I'd really like to do is have a bit of a mind trainer sandwich. So I'd like to get some folk together that are plunged into your challenge, and they'll get all stressed out. And then we do a bit of mind training with them, talk about how the brain works, how they can be calm and capable. And then we'll put them back in the gaming environment and see if the learning they've had about the mind training actually sticks. And we felt that we're always looking for a dopamine fix, aren't we? So we felt that would be a nice dopamine sandwich for them, and it might make the mind training a bit more groovy, might make it a bit more motivating. So we're talking to them at the moment, and it's all a bit shui-shui, it's a bit poker game-ish, but we know one thing, and that is we really like each other, and I think we'll probably make something work, if I'm honest, even if it's just a trial. And the other thing I'm noticing, actually, we're talking about gender, there are so many women heading up VR stuff. Pretty much everyone I'm meeting the whole thing's led by a woman. It's quite intriguing. I'm intrigued. Not shocked, but I'm intrigued, because I haven't found a workplace like this before. So that's interesting.
No, wonderful. And I know I said I'd only got 2 questions, but I've just got one more, because I think it will prompt some questions. The other beautiful thing that you've shared this evening is one of the things that we're really proud of in MOE is that we try and seek help to people go from fear to love. To go from fearing themselves to actually being in loving themselves and loving others, and being able to have the self-confidence. And I'm really hearing you've built that bridge for yourself. You've made that happen for yourself. And so when you think you join the dots going backwards, what are the moments, like we talk about moments in life that change you forever? What are those things that you've done, that you own, that you've gone, you know, like when you were in Africa and you were scared and you were like, no, actually, I'm going to stick to this. What have been those things that you've done to make that happen, to challenge yourself and find your voice? That's what we try and help people to do, find their voice and then share their voice. And you're really starting to do it. And then also, just to build on that, is I know, because, you know, I interview you on the AC podcast, and we'll do one with you on the MOE podcast as well, is that you really are starting to find your voice. And it's a wonderful to see and hear and experience that. How have you done that? Like, how have you taken yourself on that journey to go, I want to find my voice. I know I've got a voice. Actually, here's my voice. And now I want to share my voice.
Sometimes it's circumstance. Sometimes it's just blooming hard work, practice, and I got to the point where I disliked myself more for chickening out than I did for having a go. Because, you know, sometimes you kind of talk yourself out of things, don't you? And, oh, you know, it's not, shall I say it? Can I say it? Oh, I've missed the moment. Oh, I'm better off not saying it. And I'd started to hate that feeling that I'd just not spoken. And I mean, you know, in Network Rail, that was a great training ground to find my voice, because you could speak there and not be heard, especially as a female, sadly. But so I did challenge myself quite a lot. But also, you know, sadly, I think you know, Darren, that my daughter was diagnosed with anorexia back in when she was 17. She's 25 now. And I had to find my voice then, you know, to get care, support. You know, no one wanted to listen. They kept saying I was an overprotective mother, but I knew. And so I suppose some people, I always have in the back of my mind, my self-critic might say, oh, you gobby, you know, you can, sometimes you don't know when to shut up. But I've just learned over time, you don't shut up, Hilary, because I trust now that if there's something to be gobby about, I'm right to be gobby. But I've been scared. I've been scared doing it, so it doesn't just happen, you know. And it's just finding the moments where you just think, I'm going to say, as you can imagine, in my database, saying no is don't go there, Hilary. You'd be killed if you say no. That's how it was in my memory. So to say, hang on a minute, or I'm not sure, or, you know, felt life-threatening for many years. So I've learned to say, nah, that's not for me, thanks. And it's made life a damn sight easier, if I'm honest.
It's I'm so deeply proud of you and privileged to know you, and it's just wonderful to see you and see you beaming. So you know, I love seeing you beam. You know, it's so wonderful, and love seeing the fact that you're that creative soul, you know, that I first met, who just had all these ideas, and now look at you, you're actually out there influencing the industry and the profession, and actually helping to shape VR in the coaching profession. It's incredible. It is
incredible. I'm incredulous, but I wake up most mornings and think, "Ooh, what am I going to do today?" So it's fab.
It's fantastic. You're a real role model. You really are. And you know, I love more people to kind of hear your story, to inspire them, and to kind of see. And especially for me, you know, seeing, you know, mum pass away at 52, you know, with having lost all her self-confidence because of her second husband, and all of what I've experienced and seen in my life and my family have seen, to see someone, you know, at that point in their life go, no, actually, I'm kicking on. Like, and I'm not just kicking on a little bit. I'm kicking on to kind of shape a profession and an industry. It's just phenomenal.
Yeah.
So, you know, there you go. There's another energy boost for you, Hilary.
The genie's out the bottle,
absolutely.
And it ain't going back.
And yeah, absolutely. And if it ever does, we'll just I'll get my fishing rod out and pull it back out. Come back out. Anyway, we said we'd have some fun on this, and I think we are. And I think it's really important now to actually open it up to all of you to see if there's some questions that you've got. I think Hilary's happy to answer any sort of questions that you've got. So, Joe, if there's any questions on there, if you facilitate that. So is anyone that wants to sort of pop forwards, put your camera on and just ask some questions of Hilary?
Hilary, can I ask you something?
Of course you can.
Thank you. Really lovely story. Thank you for sharing. Tell me more about the bit where you said, I'm committing to saying yes more. I want to hear more about that story.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've probably seen that crazy film, The Yes Man, haven't you? From, well, maybe not, maybe that's me being old, but there's this really funny book as well called The Yes Man. It's someone who's takes it as a bet that they will say yes to everything for 24 hours. I mean, it's very funny, but I felt that I'd got to a point where I was kind of going, oh, well, probably not, and I felt that age was, I don't know, I think I did get a bit of a hang up about age, about 55, and I thought, oh, I kind of need to grow old gracefully and step back and not be seen to. And then when Faye became well enough to go to university, bless her, I actually thought, I actually was ill after Faye went to university. I think just the shock of everything I'd had to sustain while she wasn't well. And once she went to uni and she was well, I got ill. And when I got over that, I was on my booster jets then. It was like, no, I'm going for it now. and that New Year's Eve, I just said, this is how I'm going to go about it. I'm just going to say yes more. And I've never really thought about that whole thing about put it out to the universe and it will come back. But it was just like, as soon as I said that, I started getting invites to go and meet people in different countries, which hadn't happened to me ever in my life. So maybe I just looked like I'd be up for it and people started offering me lovely things. So who knows? But I'm afraid it's just as simple as that. I didn't want to get old and kind of fade away. I felt I had decades left in me. So that's it, really.
And you were right.
Seems so.
Someone else?
Can I ask a question? I don't know if it's a question. I think it's really interesting about age. I'm a similar age to you, Hilary. And, statistically, it's women of our age who were often pushed out of organisations in all sorts of ways. I was interested to hear there were more older people, I don't know whether it was just women, during furlough, they were furloughed, etc.
Yeah.
Redundancy, you'll see the same thing. And it's a huge, it sort of really undermines your confidence. And just one transition I'm quite interested to ask you about is that transition from working in an organisation to working on your own.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously over the years you've told the most amazing story. You've built up confidence and to be your own person, really, in your own space. And just that transition I'd be quite interested to hear a bit more about.
Oh yes. So I mean, I felt I needed to stay in self-employment, and when I wanted to leave Network Rail, I did take another employed job, which I thought would be okay, and I was on the sort of 3-month probation or whatever it is, and I went into a board meeting, and they were moaning about maternity leave and how women go on this maternity leave and who has to pick up the job when they're not around and how much it costs. And I actually, I did my thing. I said, I cannot listen to this. I cannot believe you're even saying this in front of me. And I went home that night and said, I'm done with it. I committed to not I committed to the hope we wouldn't spend any savings, but the next day I resigned and left, and that was it. And I cited the discrimination, sex discrimination, as my reason for going. So it wasn't kind of thought through even, but I stopped, and then I started my business, and I never looked back, which sounds like a cliche, but it was just the truth. I was just ready. But sadly, because of a lot of the circumstances you very well describe.
I think organisations are quite difficult places to be. Very
difficult. I've never been in one I felt secure. Always felt I've had to fight and watch my back. Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Yeah, I think there's a model I wrote, and funny enough, I was talking to an old client who's also become a friend, who was up until last week chief executive of a financial services company, and last week she got called into a meeting and left, basically has done nothing wrong, and it doesn't matter, it's fine. But it was really fascinating to talk to her today, because she just picked up the phone and said, I've got a dream board again, Darren, and you're the first person or second person that I needed to talk to. So can we get into dream boarding, and can you give me some questions for this weekend? Because I'm going to go away with my husband and we're going to think about what do I do next. Because sort of similar age to you, Hilary, but similar to when you really sort of stepped out, like those are the questions for her. And it's fascinating because my observation about organisations are you've got to look at the context of that organisation. You've got to look at the culture of that organisation, and then you've got to look at the characters that you're around, and then you've got to do the same for yourself and go, do I culturally fit? So is the Venn diagram, is it overlapping like this, or is it like this? And what I see with a lot of entrepreneurial types and creative types is actually it's quite tender. It's like it's only a small amount with the Venn diagram around the culture and character fit for yourself and the organisation, and it slowly starts to come apart as you gain more confidence. And then in the end, it's like actually. And the beauty of entrepreneurship is actually you create the culture, co-create the culture with others, and then you create jobs. You create jobs and you create opportunities. So I just wanted to share that model. And again, if you want more content on that, I've written about the 10 C's, and I'll put it onto the Facebook group so you can look at that. But that's what I'm hearing in that. And I see it a lot with people that decide, whether it's male or female, actually, I don't want to be in that culture anymore. And that's been my experience. Like I've moved around different cultures and gone, actually it just doesn't fit. This parent-child model, which is inherently what it is, it's parent-child models, empire-based models no longer work. And actually that's part of a wider set of context that I think is starting to shift, which is going to be fascinating. And that's why MOE is the structure it is and the circles that it is, sort of that collaborative co-pilot model. But anyway, that's enough of my views of the world, and just to kind of just give some bits. So more questions for Hilary. Has anyone got some questions for Hilary?
Yeah, I have. Thanks again, Hilary. Brilliant hearing your story. And yeah, I've got a lot of similar experience, shall I say, in the same field. And I just wondered, how did you go about getting your clients at the beginning? So it's quite nerve-wracking enough setting up your own business as a coach, but then how did you actually go about finding? Was it word of mouth, or did you use a special marketing thing? You talked about marketing at the beginning.
Yeah, so I think I kind of had different buckets happening. So just to get income in, I did a little bit of consultancy work. So I had a kind of a few days a month just working for an organisation on it was a fairly dull learning and development project, but it meant that I had some income coming in regularly. And then I managed to get myself involved in delivering some training courses around coaching. And this was all just through word of mouth. I just networked without breath, really. I just kept on networking. And then in the background, I was building up the one-to-one coaching and the team coaching. So to just kind of hit the ground running and find coachees, would have been a big ask. And so I found, for me, it helped have some have some income security about, okay, well, next month I know I'm going to earn that because I've got to deliver that 3-day course for so and so. So I kind of put myself out there in different guises, but kept my business very specifically about coaching. But I pulled money in from different sources. And then as the coaching grew, I'd kind of disconnected from those other sources. And then I one thing that really worked well for me, and I would encourage anyone as a coach to do this, is build up your own little cooperative of folk who do the things you don't do. So other people who are in coaching or training businesses that you may often be asked for. If you can build up really great relationships with folk who can help you out on things or hand over work back and forwards, you can create your own little community of work generation and partnership. And if you're lucky enough to get some kind of a group coaching offering, could you come and look at this team, you've then got people to hand immediately that you can call on. So I think as coaches, we can often end up feeling, well, I don't think it happens to me because I love networking, but some coaches I feel that work in quite isolated kind of way of business. And I think that there's always more power to our elbow if we're creating relationships together. I can never remember that thing about the sum of the parts, but you know what I mean. You'll know it, I can never get it right. What is it? The sum is greater than the whole or something, I don't know.
I love it. I'm going to leave it because it's so wonderful. I just love that. I think also
saying it's what I mean anyway.
Yeah, greater than the parts. The other thing that you did, Hilary, was you went and studied in-depth emotional intelligence, didn't you? And you worked with our good friend and my good friend and Hilary's good friend and also Mo's friend, and we'll be sharing his work soon. He's over in France at the moment, sailing around France. But when he comes back, Dr. Martin Newman. He was the world leading expert on emotional intelligence. So you also really went deep with him, didn't you? Which also helped you bridge into a new world and new markets.
Yes, Martin Newman. Gosh, he was a catalyst in me getting how my brain worked, or how it didn't work, how it could work maybe. So I worked with Martin. I was so lucky that our worlds just crossed. He came into Network Rail and I was just there ready to be his gopher, basically. But it allowed me to learn from the master in terms of what emotional intelligence is, how to measure it, how to give feedback as a coach. And it is still the absolute core of how I coach. I think explaining the basic principles of how the brain works and all the huge impact our primitive brain and emotions have on whether we can make logical decisions is, every coach should know that. It's just it's the must-have in our toolkit, is my view. So my goodness, anyone in MOE, grab Martin Newman's offering by the neck and hang on to it because it's gold dust.
It will be coming, so watch this space. And if you want to check him out, it's The Emotional Capitalist, so it's Roche Martin. And I just wanted to share a couple of other bits from a MOE perspective, just to respond to that question as well. So we're launching the Entrepreneurial Launchpad, which Joe's going to be leading on as well. So watch out for that. That's going to be bite-sized chunks around entrepreneurship, digital content with experts and programs. We've also got, if you've not come across it, I wrote a PDF in, where was I? In Portugal 5 years ago, because I was bored on a sun lounger one summer holiday and wrote a PDF that's about 70, 80 pages, which shared how I built my coaching business back in 2010 to 2017. I retired from coaching, then. And, what I would say to you is I didn't have a website for the first 18 months. because the thing that I did that other people didn't do was I went and had coffees with people and befriended them and said, what's your challenge? How could I help you? And they went, well, this is the problem. And actually a lot of coaches don't want to do that. And actually I'm very happy to go and knock on doors that are closed and go, hello, would you like to have a coffee? You know, and it might be more challenging now and all sorts of different ways of doing it, but just have a look at that because there's some good tips in there. The other thing that will be coming out, we're just waiting for COVID to settle, in London this will be, is what used to be called Dream Factory. We're no longer calling it Dream Factory, we're now calling it Dreamers and Dream Space, is our 3-day entrepreneur bootcamp where you learn about yourself, you learn about your clients and customers and what their world is and what they need, and then you learn about your business plan. So anyone that's interested in that, just let Joe or Sue know that you want to be on the wait list. And that's typically 12 to 15 people on that 3-day entrepreneur bootcamp. And what we do there is we bring people that we know in the community that are CEOs, entrepreneurs, and they come in and share their ideas. We've got a full workbook that you work through. And it's really a deep immersive experience to kind of help you accelerate your business and learn the lessons that we've learned from lots and lots of failure. I've been entrepreneurial since I was the age of 11, but really started to be successful in the last 10 years, you know, and I've made a lot of mistakes, lots and lots of mistakes, as have a lot of the people that come in and share those with you so that we can try and help you to accelerate those experiences. The other thing to look out for is that we are, you know, the AC Boost Your Coaching Business podcast that Rob's doing at the moment is brilliant. Like, I was listening to another one just yesterday. It's really, really good. And then we're doing the MOE podcast at the moment. And I just want to give you an insight from Chloe Garland. So if you don't know Chloe Garland, she's 24, I believe. She did MOE 4 years ago, and her life, Quarter Life, is, you know, really going great guns. You know, it's going really great guns. And one of the things that she said was, when I first went out, I listened to all this advice about how to do my marketing. And in the end, I got fed up with it and I just followed my intuition. And that's what made the difference. So just, you know, wanted to share that with you is like, she's very clearly sharing, I just started to do what I love. I started to follow my own path and follow my intuition. And, you know, her organization is going from success to success. And she's now got a team of 5 or 6 people that are part of her organization. And then the other thing just to share with you is that Joe and I are working on at the moment, and the MOE HQ team, is that we are adding to the side of MOE's charity, we're adding a social enterprise so that we can actually start to create more opportunities, paid gigs for you that are interested in coaching. And then I'm also on a call next week with Jeanette Marshall, who is the Director of Accreditation in the Association for Coaching. And we are building out the digital platform that we want to build for you for coaching skills, knowledge, top tips, etc., etc., etc. So we're going to build out this whole digital library, similar to what we've done in the AC, where we've got 7 years of digital research and digital insights. So just to share with you some of the things that are happening in MOE, because 2 months ago I stepped to the side of my AC role so that I could really focus on MOE and look to drive it forwards. And then the other thing I want to share with you is get ready for end of January 2022, where we're going to celebrate 10 years and we're going to have a massive party in London, and we're also going to launch MOE 5.0. So that'll be either the last week of January or the second to last week in January. But I just wanted to share with you a whole load of things that are starting to emerge. And as we learn, we'll share it with you all collectively. And then one final thing is final sort of conversations with a tech and solution partner, so that we can start to really build a community inside a safe space within MOE for you to connect with from people across the world. MOE now has supported people in 15 different countries, and we think it's going to be 60, 70 countries over the course of the next 2 or 3 years because of the fact that we've moved everything digital. So just some things to share with you. We're going to keep adding more people every month to this to support you on that journey. But the thing to do is, when you get asked, you know, when you get the opportunity, please do send us through the questionnaire. Racer, who's on here, you can't see Racer, so we'll be sending out a questionnaire to the entire community in July, and you'll be, hey Racer, and Racer's going to be leading on that. She's our new Director of Engagement. And then we've got Natalie, who's also joined us in MOE HQ. And so we're going to be really listening. There's Natalie. Hey Natalie, welcome. We've got, I'll be introducing the team over the course of the next few days out to the community. And it's really exciting because Natalie's going to be looking at strategic partnerships and philanthropic networks, and also our impact amongst many other things. So you know, there's a lot starting to emerge, and what we need to get from you guys is tell us what you need, and then we'll go and find the thought leaders that can help you and support you, but in a non-salesy, non-bullshit, you know, practical, pragmatic, you know, cards on the table, really honest and open approach, because that's our style. We want to cut, you know, when I did my coaching in 2002, they called me Cut the Crap Coach. And I love that title, and I like to keep that. It's like, actually, let's just really, you know, give honest opportunities and honest feedback and information to people to try and support you. Anyway, so that's a bit about Mo. So back to questions for Hilary. We've only got another 20 minutes, 15 minutes. So any more questions for Hilary?
I've got something to share if you'd like to. Probably a good. So what I'd like to, this will go out to you guys as part of the thing, but I wanted to give you this link. So there's a link at the top right. So this allows anyone who goes in and then clicks on the Try Now button. You just have to put your email address in. It's, you know, there's no payment, nothing. This will give you free access to Mind Trainer, so you can play with it as much as you like. Okay, and then the other thing I'd like to offer you is that if anyone on the call or who listens to it afterwards wants to understand more about the product, I'm going to hold a little webinar on the 14th of July, and you can, if you want to come on it, email Ali, and she'll make sure you get an invite, and then I can talk you through, and sort of we can play with it on the screen. But do play with it, because that's why it's there for. You know, it's no good it just sort of sitting dormant waiting for some corporate geezer to turn up. So yeah, I'd love the Mo community to make of it what they will, really. So
thank you. Can I just ask a quick second question?
Absolutely.
I'm just interested in, are you saying that the product you've developed is a pathway to mindfulness? So it's a sort of stepping stone for those that would be quite.
Yeah, you've got it exactly. So it's kind of entry point to start developing that focus and noticing that gets us to that incredible place of being able to shift in the moment rather than react. Yeah.
One of the things I did recently, and somebody that I did the Mo coaching training with recommended, was the Barista course, which he's put online. And that's clearly, he's developed he's working with Stanford students who are in the business school and things. And I was just so struck by how he kept coming back to, you know, good sleep, mindfulness, you know, a diet almost of certain key functions, key things that help us function well and live like good lives and be happy. And I was just amazed by that. He kept coming back to it. It's very, if anybody looks at it, it's very contemporary because he's referencing COVID as well. It's very human and very, so it's really interesting that you're bringing people who perhaps wouldn't come to mindfulness.
Yeah, and it is about health. You know, we live in a world that stimulates our brain way too much, you know, and we end up in a primitive state of high arousal to such an extent that the chemicals that incites and is just laid dormant in our veins because, you know, we're just in front of the screen, or, you know, we're not going to be running or fighting, you know, we're just going to be sitting. So it's one of the reasons that my stepdaughter and I have developed compassion focused coaching. You know, we brought compassion focused coaching in from the therapeutic world and adapted it. We ran our first 2-day course last week. But the reason for it is because even as coaches, we can be on the hamster wheel as we go into a session. We can be zhuzhed up within our drive system, when actually we need to be in our calm system to coach well. So to spend 2 days with coaches, helping them understand where they were at in terms of self-compassion. You know, there were quite a number of tears shed, I can tell you, because we don't feel comfortable with self-compassion. We don't feel comfortable, just like that paper said, with quiet. You know, we want to fill the space with angst, and sadly the world around us encourages us to do that more and more and more. So I am an advocator of it, but I also know that unless you start where people are, you can't take them with you. You know, you have to be with them in their space and move them with understanding and cooperation. And I think sometimes mindfulness is seen to be too far away, and people just go, oh no, that's not going to fit, that's not going to catch on.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting, because the reason I went up to Scotland was to work with 2 people who we're going to be launching through MOE, who are they've spent the last 10 to 15 years of their life studying the inside out model of health in different genres, and one of them is an expert in Tai Chi and another one in Qigong, and we're going to be launching them through our social enterprise and bring that work to the world, not just MOE, that's actually beyond MOE. And you know, it's really exciting work, because you know what we see consistently, and COVID has been a really good example of it, is, you know, the outside in fear-based model to love, and actually the inside out model of actually we have an immune system, actually, and that immune system you can trust, but actually if you hear enough from the media that you can't, then actually that starts to cause all sorts of tension within us. So I think there's a lot to do, and I had, you know, I've never done Tai Chi, I've never done Qigong, and I was doing it on the beach from 8 till 10 every morning for 3 days, and I've now got the form and the process, and I'm going to start embodying it, and it's really, I've never experienced the sense of grounding that I've experienced. I didn't understand it. I've never done any work of that nature. I did judo when I was a kid for 5 years, but I've never done anything like Tai Chi or Qigong, and it was incredible, like that sense of like really grounding in my heels. It was really fascinating. So we're going to be launching that into the world, and I'll get Alex, who's the Tai Chi expert, because part of what he's doing is building an online video, and then he's also building an online, and we were going and testing actually how you can video it on the beach in Scotland, and we were testing all that. So that's going to come out as well, and you know, that will be an opportunity for you to explore Qigong and Tai Chi as well. And then he's also which was really fascinating for me, he's done something called the wiggle walk, and wiggle walking is regenerative walking for people that have had an accident, or the elderly who often have the danger of falling. But also, you know, someone like me who's doing a long walk, and what he's done is he's modelled African women who carry 20 kilograms on their heads, and if you notice how they do it, their hips actually move, and babies, when they first learn to walk, that's how they work. And so we were practicing wiggle walking as well, which was, you know, that was also something else that he's bringing to the world as well, which is pretty unique. He's studied the physical, you know, the muscular, you know, and energetic aspects of the human, you know, the human body, which is quite fascinating. So there's more of this work coming through MOE, but also there's some great podcasts. So I love just to share them. Rich Roll has some really fascinating people on. So if you've never come across Rich Roll, Dr. Chatterjee, you know, he's got some great ones. And then Jay Shetty, who, you know, we've got a relationship with, because actually, you know, we supported Jay set up his business through the AC. So we helped him set up his coaching platform and business. So, you know, and they have some fascinating people on those podcasts, and I'm sure there's lots of others. But as we move to this engagement and community platform, we'll be able to kind of make sure that information is shared and available to you, so we can all start sharing great top tips and things like that. And Lisa, I think absolutely right. I mean, if one of my own personal learnings, and Hilary, I'd love to hear yours, is what I've realised actually in life, it's just be happy. Do what makes you happy and feel self-love and love and contribution, but be happy. Do what makes you happy as much as you possibly can. Life just flows. So it's really good to kind of pull that point out, you know, and there's lots of different ways we can access happiness. But that's certainly something that in the last couple of years I've really come to terms with in myself. What about you, Hilary? What's your sense around that?
Yeah, I've just come to realise that I have the answer, you know, in the mood I have, the way I feel. it's how I react to everything, and how I choose to respond. I can just choose, and so if I can notice how I'm feeling, I can then choose something different. So if I'm feeling miserable, choose something else, Hilary. Don't be mumping on about how everyone else is. Just change your own attitude. And if I can't do it in this room that I've spent bloody hours in the last year, I get out. I just have to get out, and then if I get out, it's easier to change my perspective. But it's I often say to clients, would you speak to others the way you speak to yourself? Because it's just what goes on in our own head that's the killer most of the time.
Yeah. Very true.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Thank you, Lisa. Further questions?
Hilary, can I ask you about the virtual reality? Because we talked about dynamic meditation a little bit earlier, and I'm actually all for dynamic meditation. I love actually all forms of meditation. Can sit quite quietly with myself, or I'll go on runs, or I'll go out in nature. But actually, I've really got into dancing of late. And actually, I wondered if there was, what I noticed in doing the particular program that I'm doing at the moment is that you kind of feel quite immersed in other people dancing around you, even though they're on the TV. But I was just thinking in my mind, what an amazing virtual reality opportunity that would be. And even doing the Tai Chi, whether or not something like that as a dynamic meditation to help these 75% of men that can't do the sitting still, whether or not that's another route to your virtual reality in doing something that was more dynamic rather than immersing just in nature.
Yeah, well, that's very interesting. And I went on an emerging platform the other day where you can meet people in a VR headset in this sort of auditorium, and then you can play a 360 in the environment around the auditorium. So what you're saying is that you could be in the auditorium with your colleagues. I was with a friend of mine in Germany, and we were thinking about how we could run our 360 video of nature on the outside of it, and it sounds like you could do the same with the dancing. I mean, I can share that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I could share that business with you, and there probably are opportunities. Yeah.
When just a practical question, when you've got your VR headset, what's your spatial awareness of other people like? Because I've never worn one in my life. So the Oculus 2 is there's for our products you only need a passive headset, so you don't need all the whistles and bells. But in the ones where you can do a multiplayer activity, like all being in one room together and communicating, that allows you to draw a safe parameter around you that's invisible until you go up to it, and then it shows you that you don't go any further. So it kind of sets you up with a safe space. I'm not sure how I would never tried to do dancing in it. I don't know, that will, yeah, maybe I should try tomorrow. Maybe
I'm just really curious about how far you can kind of push it, especially in terms of coming out of COVID and people, struggling with social isolation, whether or not you can do a virtual reality to kind of help them tiptoe back out of that social isolation back into, society again. It could be a really wonderful experience.
Well, it is a real treat to go into a meeting room and meet my colleague in Spain with my colleague in Germany, and us all to be, okay, we're not us, we've got our voices, we're little avatars, but it does give you that mammalian sense of, group, which is what we're all about. That's what we're missing so much. We need each other because we're mammals. So, it got me thinking now.
Good. So, you can send me the royalty check.
Yeah, well, I'm more intrigued to see the video of you dancing with a headset on, and I want to know what you're dancing to. That's the guess.
There you go. It's like one of those discos, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like the discos where you've all got your goggles on.
That's wonderful. So, any more questions? Thanks for that, Demi. That was lovely.
Why do you think it's women heading up the VCR companies?
Because we were awesome.
We are awesome. I also think we don't mind not knowing as much as men do quite often in these fields. I think IT has been the domain of men for since its arrival, really. But it's interesting because while I thought the kit would be attractive to men, it's the women who can't wait to use it. I often have to prompt and cajole and get on to the men to get it out of the box. Whereas my women clients are they can't wait to get it on and have a go and play. I think they're more, perhaps there's something more about playing that they feel comfortable with. I'd love to do a study on that in itself.
Well, I think it's fascinating. I'm going to just riff. So Racer and I have been sharing all sorts of videos, but Sadhguru. So if you've not come across Sadhguru on YouTube, worth checking out some of Sadhguru's work. He's a really interesting Indian. I think he's Indian. I think I'm right in saying he's Indian. Yeah. So he's fascinating. And one of the videos that I really love, he talks about, so the Dalai Lama the other week talked about oneness within, right? And then Sadhguru talked about the feminine and the masculine in all of us. We've all got feminine and masculine. And one of the things that I've become more aware of as I've grown up is I grew up in a matriarchal family where the dominant adults were two post-World War II women, because my grandfather unfortunately died when I was 4 and my other grandfather wasn't alive. So my grandmothers were the most dominant, and our mum was just, this ball of incredible love. So we grew up in a very matriarchal, but sort of tough love. Our grandmothers were very tough because of World War II. They'd had to take on the male and the female. That's how I've sort of post-rationalised it. I'm not saying I'm right. But back to Sadhguru, and what's really interesting about that YouTube, he talks about the masculine and the feminine within all of us. And actually what, I recognise within myself is that if you look at transactional analysis, natural child, I spend most of my life in natural child, purposefully playing every day of my life. That's what I do every single day of my life. I retired from work 5 years ago, really retired 2.5 years ago. And I purposefully play every day. And I am in touch with my creative intelligence, and I'm in touch with my deep imagination as well. And we're going to bring some work to you all about inner space. And supporting you in sort of tapping into your creative intelligence and your imagination, because we think that's incredible work that needs to be brought. And then we're also going to take that into education to talk about neurodiversity for young kids. And then we're going to support parents with understanding when they've got neurodiverse kids. So there's lots and lots of different things that are starting to emerge from that. But watch that Sadhguru, because it's so lovely the way he talks about the feminine and the female as the creative force and the creative source in life. And so I think, we're going to see the emergence of much more of the feminine. I won't just say female, but the feminine will start to come. And the way I've been writing about it, and I'm not sharing it out there in the world yet, but is the rise of the feminine and the new loving masculine. Like there is a coming together within ourselves, that oneness that the Dalai Lama talks about is really essential. And what we want to do as MOE is we want to support that journey. We want to support people on that journey and that thinking. So I think that it's that. I think actually with technology and other things, we've got to get into our imaginative. So I'm talking about beyond creativity, beyond innovation, imagination. And actually I call myself an Imagineer now, which actually comes from Walt Disney. So if you look up Walt Disney, he had an Imagineers and the Imagineering. And his strategy was the dreamer, the critic, and the realist. The dreamer, the critic, and the realist. And I use the dreamer, the critic, and the realist every day of my life. So have a look up Imagineering. You'll start to hear it more and more from Mo, because we've got different circles that are Imagineers and Imagineering circles. And it's something that we really fundamentally believe. So I think it's that. I think that we're at a point with lots of different things where we need more imagination. And I think women are starting to own their creative intelligence. I think they're starting to own their identities and realise, like, as life givers, all the potential that they truly have. And like, we'll only ever celebrate that, obviously, with an organisation as proudly said, a mother's love sits at the heart of it. And actually what was really beautiful, just to share with you, the other day, someone said to me, well, actually, with what you're doing with the fishing project, actually, it's a father's love. So there was a real sense of integration for me, like when I heard that, because I hadn't really given it much thought. We've always talked about a mother's love in May. So that's my sense on that. I am, and it's wonderful to see. You know, it's more power to the elbow. One more question. Anyone else got a question or an observation? We'll make sure everyone's got Hilary's connections. You'll get the video, the recording, so you'll get that. We'll get the offer. So thank you so much for that, Hilary. I've got other ideas that have kind of percolated and I've written down on my piece of paper as I've been listening to you as always. So we'll pick those up separately, and I'm looking forward to that. But is there any sort of final thoughts or final questions before we say thank you very much? No. Hilary, so final question for you. So where you are in your journey, your entrepreneurial journey now, you know, if you were to offer 3 top tips or 4 top tips, what would those top tips be? And I know I didn't ask you, so you've gone off looking. Look at that. Look at that. That's an example of Imagineering there. Look what Hilary's doing. She's looking up and she's looking up, right? That's Imagineering right there.
Oh, 3 top tips. Well, trust your little voice. Play with others. And keep going even on the dark days. That's it, really.
Well, thank you so much for your time this evening, Hilary, and thank you.
Oh, I've loved it. Thanks so much for listening to me. It still comes as a bit of a shock. So thanks for turning up.
Wow, you've got an incredible story, and you share it with such grace and humility and beauty, and it's just wonderful, Hilary. It's just, you know, I think there's so many people that would be inspired by you sharing your voice in such a humble way. So thank you, genuinely heartfelt thanks.
Pleasure, absolute pleasure.
And then thank you all. Have a lovely evening and weekend when it lands. I'll be thinking of you all as I walk around London. So, you know, we'll be sending the link out so you can track us and see if I've fallen off at any point. We're being tracked. So you'll be able to, if you're interested, you'll be able to kind of track us. And I will on occasion pop up and do some Facebook lives and stuff like that, you know, just for fun. But yeah, it will depend on how, you know, how deep the pain cave is and if I'm on a stretcher. I'll just tell you this final anecdote. So Ian, who is Sue's husband, my oldest friend, 18 months old. My mum was his mum number 2. His mum was my mum number 2. And today he sent me a message saying, you know, good luck, sort of old boy, you know, good luck. And I went, you know, I'm all right, I'm still young. And he went, well, your heart doesn't say that, and nor do your legs, like taking a mickey out of me. And then he went a bit further and he said, you know, let's just hope the London Air ambulance doesn't have to drop in to help you. So I was like, well, thanks for that, mate. Now, there's a motivation. There's a friend motivating me to actually make sure I get through it. But anyway, I thought I'd share that anecdote. And Ian, you've just been outed if you get to watch this. So they now all know, Ian. They now all know. No, fabulous. Have a lovely evening, everyone, and thank you so much for being with us. And see you all soon.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.